So the fingers of the positions should be in what we call a gentle C curve, with the top of the lines of the fingers making the top of the letter T, and the index fingers and the thumb actually making the, I don't know, is it the stem of the T?
Yeah.
That do? Stem of the T. I say all the fingers need to be slightly curved over. I've got a paint roller here, and if I use that under the fingers, that's too much of a curve. For my fingers, something like that's a much better shape to get that nice curl. Small hands might be something as small as a pencil, just to encourage that curve movement. To encourage the pupil to keep their fingers in a line, you can also use the flump or the ruler or something nice, and as they move their fingers along the line, you can move the flump or the object along to encourage their fingers to stay in that line. Okay, so each finger has a job to do. Initially, we will encourage the children to, with both hands, go from the start of the line along to the end of the line. As soon as we can, we will actually encourage them to split their hands halfway, but none of the young children that you're with at the moment are at that stage. So the index fingers are what I call the detective fingers, and they do the main bit of decoding, and they do this by not just recognising where there are dots, but noticing where there aren't dots and the shape of the whole cell. To do this, they have to have the information gained from the cells that are either going to come across with the right hand or that they've been across, so that they know whether the dots are in the top, the middle or the bottom of the cell. The we call these the leading fingers. They also pick up the information from the braille and decode from the line. They work out the length of the word so that the picture of the whole word can be put together. But they also, they're like the muscles. They actually give them movement, the push of the fingers moving. It's important to keep the little finger on the line if you can, because eventually our students will move the little finger out and detect the end of the page. Same as the left hand. These are the main detective fingers, although these fingers will work out where the start of the word and the end of the word and the previous words are and the relationship in the cell. Whereas these two, we call them trailing fingers, actually act as pushers to actually give the physical movement. The little finger also, when returning to read the next line, finds the end of the line. So as many fingers as possible on the braille in that nice C curve, noticing that the child is going to get most of the decoding and the perception of the letter from these two fingers. Okay, so starting at the page, they will slowly move across. Initially we'll give them patterns of all the same braille or maybe just a line, and just encourage them to keep all those fingers on the line and actually go right the way to the end of the line with that little finger, because we want to build up the same sensitivity in all the fingers. And then they may either track back down that line and go down, or they can go down and across. It makes no difference, it's the same distance. Okay, so back to the beginning of the line, and then they will slowly track along. And I don't know if you noticed then, my little finger noticed the change in the line as I was going across the rail, and my little finger can actually detect the different letter there. So although the main perception, decoding, reading is done with the index fingers, the other fingers still act to build up the whole picture of the word, like we would if we were sight reading. We look at a word, we don't sound it out, we recognise the shape, the length of the word, maybe the prefix or the ending of the word. We don't actually read the whole word, we actually perceive it after a certain length of time. So we can just repeat this, and we make a story up saying, I don't know, is there rabbits in little holes, and we'll put a gap in, or is it spaceships, and you might make a pinging noise when they find a gap, because I've just found a gap there. I didn't notice the gap with that finger, I only noticed it with those. But eventually our young learners will recognise dots and no dots with all of the fingers.